Alright lads and lasses, welcome along. Dataset 9, week 3. New York taxis. Who would have thought there was like so much in there, like in terms of the sheer volume that we can get into, right? As you know, if you remember, right, gone through week 1, week 2, week 3, we're going to look at DAX and measures now. So we went through, we pulled all the New York taxi data in from the trip place, from the trip site. We decided not to bring in people, and I'll show you again today, and I think not bringing in people is probably the right thing, because what we're going to be left with here is some real now what should I do next things, right? And I want you to get comfortable with the idea of now what should I do next, because I've been doing this for a lot of years now, and now what do I do next is kind of, more often than not, it's kind of where we go. And that's one of the nice things about Power BI is there's no end point. You know, we'll get to the point where we've published up a report, we've built a data model, we've got some beautiful visuals, everything's amazing. Management are like, oh, right? And invariably, the same breath is going like, oh, you get the yeah, but, right? So, yeah, the yeah, but is kind of like, oh, that's really good, but, right? It's the reality of life, man, the Power BI developer. So that's alright, we can live with that. So, kind of important to come through and have a look at that. So we fixed all the data, we managed to pull it together, right? And then we built our base report, yeah? So what we've done, what I've done, while these were away, right, is we've got the tables. So you saw how the tables were built, the 3 tables that we've got, yeah? So we've got our calendar table, we've got our dates, we've got our times, we've got time, right? And we've got New York taxis. New York, yeah. Then whack together some relationships, right? And you can see we've got active and passive, yeah? So which is normal. You know, I would want to be able to look at it from, I want to look at it from pickup time, or pickup information, or drop off information, right? And the two, different. You could find slight differences, slight variations. I know there is. So some of we start, remember, 1st of January 2019, that's from drop off time. So some of the pickups, a small number of pickups, have no date time because the calendar's not in the calendar for them, right? Which is, they were picked up just before midnight on the 31st of December. It's not like, okay. It's not like a huge issue. If it was a real business thing, we'd add a day, it's not a big deal, right? But it's worth being aware of, kind of this, right? And then obviously we've got in some calculations, some nice calculations in here. So with total fares, with total tips, and the average or the tips percentage, right? It's important, I don't know. The US is quite a tips-driven society, kind of interested in that, tips affected, what's going on with tips. And then we've got the average passenger count. So, how does that vary for time? As a base report. So what does that look like? I hear you say, yeah? What does that look like? Take us into Power BI and show what you've done. Okay? Champion. I'll do that now then. So here we are, Power BI, right? Let's have a look, look around. What do we see, yeah? So over there, you see, we've got the monthly journey counts by time frame. So like what time of the day. Remember we built those 3-hour windows. And then all the way further over there, we've got this nice view of journey counts by date. Now, this is a brush. Huh? What brush mean? So we've got a nice picture of what's going on. But what we can always do is you can drag, select. So that's how you can select on here. Yeah. So you can just pick up and grab big chunks or little chunks at a time, depending what you want. Now, given the type of this or the style of this data set, that's quite useful. It can save you some screen real estate instead of having to put in, say, like a slicer to select it. And that can be useful, saving screen estate. Remember, it's all about, don't forget, you've kind of got, there's not much you can really put on here. We've got really 5 key areas in here that are showing us what's going on. So we've got like the total, the number of journeys, your passengers, all that sort of stuff. We've got all that stuff. And then we've got where people picked up from, where people dropped off from, and then those 2 big charts at the top, right, which are really showing us kind of that everything is performing pretty consistently. We see there's this change in key times, January as well. January. So January, for whatever reason, people seem to do more between, which is it, mid-morning and night, switch over in terms of it. So be worth looking into what's that. Potentially it could be as simple as saying, well, more people, we've got night there and morning, mid-mornings to be more. It's cold. It's cold. More people take the taxis in January. That could be it. It's worth looking. Or is it that less people are going out? So you'd look and see, well, the journey count there was 1 million, just under 1 million. We're back to just under 1 million. The year before, just under 1 million, 1.1, 1.1. So it does look like it's not, they're quite closely aligned anyway, but it's, these are little things that you start to see as you're looking at the data. Something, that might not have been apparent if we just looked at that as a table of data. In fact, if we look, what's that look like as a table? It shows a table. And you can see, well, it'd be hard pushed to pick and say, well, night swaps over from mid-morning at some point. Now, mid-morning is kind of that 9 till 12, isn't it? That's where I put that in, 9 till midday. So it is, is either that, or is it that people are coming in to work later or something like that, that it's actually moving some of the traffic around. So, do we see a corresponding dip? So you can kind of get to the point where you're starting to see where that, that's really good, but it comes. And Power BI is great for doing the really good, that's really good, but analysis, because you start with something and that'll make you as a developer start to think, well, hang on, what's going on? And in terms of this New York taxi data, I'm coming at it pretty cold. I'm not like, I haven't been working for New York taxis for 15 years. Time served, man and boy, and I'm in New York taxi data like no one else, I tell you, right? That's not me. So, I've opened this, I've got some assumptions. I was like, I picked this for a reason. I don't know if you can work out what the reason I picked this data set was, mind, but I picked it for a good reason. So we've got here where we've got the really core bits of the data. We can use this, and the way I've built this as well is as a drill through. So I'll let you know now, these darkest blue areas here, well, this is less dark blue. These are of course the airport areas. So we've got JFK, we've got LaGuardia, and we've got Newark. So we can see that taxis are doing a lot of traffic around them 3 areas. We could also then start to do further work. So I've set up drill throughs on here. So I could choose to drill through and look up the pickup information for, in this case, Newark Airport. And we'll see it tells us Newark Airport, where are people actually going? Now, an interesting one is a lot of people going to Newark Airport. So I'm guessing is that there's terminals that you've got to get a taxi between. A lot of that, a lot of traffic from there. But you can then see the areas and the boroughs that people are actually going to in the taxis. So it's kind of really useful to be able to start to explore data in this way, right? And Power BI, because of the way it works, it does make it really simple. And using drills is a very informed way of actually making sure that people can see what's going on without having to be bombarded with the information. It's a very interactive way of accessing information. So I can say, oh, what's going on at LaGuardia, for example. Yeah, or I could do like the crazy thing and say, who are we picking up from Rikers? And we can see Rikers Island, the way it's actually progressing. So there's a lot there very quickly, very easily that you're able to build in. Yeah. So on the DAX, it's going to be available to download as part of the package that we'll put in geordieintelligence.co.uk. So don't forget, go there, get all the DAX that you need. So nothing's too crazy in there. Okay. And so what's next? We've got the main report built, haven't we? We've got the core pieces. We've got all the stuff that we needed in. So we've got what data pulled in, all 108 million rows of it. We've got some baseline measures built in. Excellent, so we're ready to grow, right? We can crack on with this now, yeah? Next thing we'd want to start looking at would be a calculation group, you know, because no matter what we do with the measures that we had, if you remember, you know, we're saying like we've got the total fares, total journeys was in there, got the tips percentages. It's probably, we're always going to want like to be able to look at, well, what was that last year? And what's the percentage difference from, you know, between last year and now? Yeah, I might want to know, right? So those are kind of key questions that will always come on, right? And this is where calculation groups can really come into their own. So calculation group, how on earth do you do a calculation? We're just going to do a quick one because heck, we've done a couple in these last few videos. If you're really stuck, down back to Dataset 8 where we did it, really went into it. I think Dataset 7 as well. Yeah, I've covered calculation groups. Yeah. Anyway, right, let's crack on our Power BI desktop and see what that looks like. So here we are, Power BI desktop. Calculation groups. What is it? Don't forget, these are external tools that you need, right? So you got your external tools, tabular editor. What you can see here is I've written, oh, I'll tell you what, let's get rid of this ugly thing, can't see anything. Let's get rid of my face. What you can see in my tables here, you can see I've got a special one, like a calculation table. It's got a different icon, hasn't it? Right? Year over year, or year on year, is what I've written. So we've got three options in here. I've got current, which if you remember, I've always said, recommend putting in current. Just call it current, or default, or now, or whatever it would be. Yeah, and that's just going to be selected measure. Right? Got last year, which is going to be calculate selected measure for the same period last year. Right? And then because now we're going to be aiming to do this based on month, year, right, in this analysis, I've put percentage change, but it's going to default to using month, year. So we've gone in, we want to do a little bit cute with this one to get it to work. So we've put in our last year and we've put in our current year value, yeah. So last year as a calculation. Remember, you didn't want, what's it called again? Anyone remember? Sideways recursion. That's right, sideways recursion. So never reference other calculation items within a calculation item. Yeah, think Ghostbusters, another famous New York movie, didn't let the streams cross. Variable for any that you need to use again, and you're going to have to make sure that those stay the same as you're going and building your calculation. So what I've done with that is I've done calculate last year, I've got the current year, and I've done this here where we're doing a distinct count of the month years. How many month year values have we got in this selection? And you're going, well, hang on, doesn't make sense. I'll go over this when we have a look at what this means, works. Right? And then you've got your if statement there. So if it's blank last year, call it blank, yeah, because there's now from last year. And then for the divide, we're going to take minus one minus. It just seems to be, I think that gives us a better way of going about it, doesn't it? So that's how we've written that. So that's pretty good. So what does that look like in Power BI Desktop? So if we go now to Power BI Desktop, okay, and we click on the year on year tab where I've put all this stuff, yeah, you'll see. So that bit that I put in, it stops the total appearing there, okay, for the percentages. Because we don't want a total on the percentage change, but you would probably still want to be able to have a total of your last year values and your current year values, which is why I've done that with the percentage change. Okay? It shows that you can do different things with different things. You can see as well, no matter what format we've put this in, it's always come through with a percentage, it's always come through with a solid, consistent formatting. So you can see that no matter what happens, percentage change is always going to be a percentage with one decimal point. And that's defined here. Yeah, so you can see down there. There it is, yeah. So that's a vital thing to know how to do as well, that we can put those together and actually then see the difference and the change. Now what we've got here, if we look here, this is based on the total fares and this is based on the total tips. But the key piece of information that we'll look at is the tip percentage. Okay, so what we can see is in 2020, going up from January, it's pretty normal. January, February, they're about the same. February is actually a little bit higher. So last year was 3% down. And then it starts to change. And this is really where we're starting to talk about. This was the impact of COVID. This is one of the things that I wanted to show what's going on. So we'll talk some more about this in a bit. But that's one of the things with the calculation group, that we can use calculation groups. We can define number formats within them so that this, which is dollars elsewhere, suddenly switches to be percentage. And don't forget, for a calculation group to be used, we're using one measure. So it's total fares, and then it's running through the different options within the calculation group. So it's not a case of saying, oh yeah, right? It's one measure. And because of that, it means that if I want to write more measures and use them, I can. So I could easily, let's copy this and paste it. All right, so I've taken this and I've filtered it down to 2020, just to make it easier, just so we can understand a little bit easier. If I get rid of the value in here, total tips, and let's put in average distance. Does average distance change? It does, doesn't it? You know, so it's dropped. Average distance travelled has really dropped, hasn't it? So those are things that I haven't had to write. I've been able to just write a measure and put it in and see, oh, how does it work? You know, we could do the same, drop in the average passengers, see how the passenger counts have changed. This is a vital function that calculation groups give you. The ability to suddenly have a measure that you've written quickly and easily be superseded with, in terms of its value, by being able to rapidly put together a whole string of additional measures that will work with it. Okay, and if you're saying, well, I don't necessarily want them all, you've got the year-on-year value, so I can always just untick and just say, well, all I really want to have is the percentage value at the end. Okay, and because I can do all that, I can suddenly actually have a very powerful way of presenting data in ways that I may not have considered beforehand. So use an yeah. So what we're seeing is you're starting to get into this idea, aren't we, for demo 7, that when you start to use Power BI, when it really starts to be used properly, it will naturally lead you to want to do or explore the data more. That's just part of what happened. There isn't a change, it draws you into a view of, I need to do more to understand this number more. And that's one of the areas that for me personally is extremely powerful within Power BI. And for all it's really soul destroying when you get the whole, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, sorry, it's the boss's voice, isn't it? It'd be posh, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's really very good. Yeah. But, and you go, oh man, yeah, oh, what's the problem? Like, you know, I've done a great job. I should be happy. It happens, right? And there's not an issue with it. It's not a case of saying, oh, well, you know, I've done a rubbish job. It's a case of saying, what can we do to make it better? And to keep making it better, and to keep making the model better. And again, this is all part of the strength of a data-driven culture. So it's not anything that I'm just, you know, deciding I want to now. It's a case of, hey, the data's showing me something. Do we know why that is? And then if we can figure out why that is, potentially we can do something to actually change and provide a truly positive experience for our business. So there's a couple of things that I note here. Yeah, you know, every moment's a teaching moment, of course. Right, so tips, we've touched on that already. You know, they went from 11% consistently month on month down to 7%, the lowest month, I think April 2020. Right, to me personally, right, that's almost really counterintuitive. If you know that taxi drivers are having a difficult time, and I'll be honest, I'd actually expected this to be the exact opposite. I expected tips to taxi drivers to go up because they're having to work. They're not able to get the money they need to live. Society should rally around. You know, dropping is so counterintuitive to me. I mean, that's, you know, nearly 30% drop, kind of massive when you consider that there's a 90% drop in taxi fares. That's being corresponded with a 30% drop in the tip percentage. So not only have they lost 90% of their taxi fares, which are going to make up most of their revenue, they've lost a big chunk of what tips they could have expected to get for that volume. That's, that's kind of me. That's kind of massive. That's like you've been told, whatever you usually earn, well, you're only going to get 10% of that now, right? And you go, oh, that's great. But at least I can still rely on them tips, eh? And they go, no, we've taken 30% off your tips as well. You'd be like, oh. So that was an interest when I was kind of like, I was genuinely shocked by that. I did not expect to see that. But I think no one's going to argue and say, well, it's COVID. We know it's COVID. We can kind of work around that and say, right, but this is an impact. So that was very counterintuitive to me. Worth having a look at that. Again, I think if you wanted to dig deeper, you would dig in and see, well, could we get any information about types of passengers? So is it a commuting journey? Is it something else? And if you remember, if we go back to here and we're looking at the average passengers, if we look at last year and current, just for the passenger counts, we can see the passenger counts are down in terms of the average passengers in a taxi. So my personal take on that is that you've got a lot more ones versus ones and twos. So, small numbers like that, it's 1 or 2 people in a taxi is generally what you seem to be seeing with 1.5, 1.5, 1.55, 1.56. I would guesstimate in, my little world, that's going to be single occupancy or double occupancy. So 1 or 2 people, that's all you're going to have, right? And you're probably going to have, based on that, it's about a 50-50 split, isn't it? Between where they've got 1 person and where they've got 2 people. When we're dropping down, and we can see there in April, we're at 1.28. That's nearly, you're going to have like way more, a high percentage of those are going to be single people. So potentially what that could mean is that you're getting the commuter market. So people who are still having to go to work, potentially people who are already low paid, still got to get to work, even though everyone else has been told to stay home or work from home, you've still got to go. That's a difficult one, and potentially they're then maybe not going to want to tip, or maybe, and I don't know, again, maybe New York's rallied around, the taxi drivers are saying, well, we're not going to take tips from nurses. I don't know, but I tell you what, that nice warm feeling I get from my heart, I'm gonna say, I'm hoping that's what it is, that it's because they've said we're not going to take tips from nurses, they're giving back as well. Looking at the impact it's had, massive, cannot move away. We can start to see the data shows us a lot. What more we can get from it is where we need to go. And we might need to say, well, is there a way we could expand on that information in terms of who are those those passengers? Is there information that we have in terms of where they're going from, where they're going to? And of course, we know we can look and we can go back to our overview and we can say, well, I just want to see 2020. There we go, right. So we can see the drop off really clearly and we can see where people are going from and to. So one of the things to put on the drill through is probably that monthly comparison as well. So we're actually starting to see what's happening year on year and put year on year charts on there. Okay. Now we've touched on something with that discussion, a true year on year comparison. So at the moment it just isn't possible. 2019, it was a normal year, right? Now there is a trend in the 2019 data. If we look at it, clearing that back, just looking across there, it could be my old eyes. We've already discussed, Ross has got hard eyes, right? But that's heading down December to January in my mind, right? I see that as a downward trend across the piece. It's not significant. It doesn't look like it's a big drop, but it does seem to be there's a drop, okay? But that could be just seasonality. So we can see, for example, that over the summer period, it drops. The taxi journeys drop, which potentially is counterintuitive. Is that more tourism? Shouldn't there be more taxis? Is there other things going on? So it's, the stuff to do that would be worth having a look at. But we couldn't do it because we've only got one normal year. And I don't think anyone's going to turn around and say, 2020, it's been a normal year. It's been brilliant. Honestly, 2020, it's like every other year. Honestly, I couldn't notice any different. So there's no real trend pattern. That's not to say the data from 2020 isn't valuable. This is the exact opposite, because what we're seeing is the impact of a pandemic. And that impact is something we would want to archive and see and track and trace and see as it goes down, and then as it recovers, and then as we go back up again, and how long does it take to return to normal? And that's going to be something that's really important, because this might carry on, or there could be, well, it's only a matter of time before we have another major disaster like that. And at that point, what do we do? You know, SARS was less than 20 years ago. This is similar. It's, you know, we can expect something else would happen. And it would be good to be able to look and see what went well, what went badly. So from a business perspective, I would look at my 2020 data as gold dust. It's really important to understand what goes well, what goes badly, what strategies did we try that didn't work, and own those. What strategies did we try that did work? And again, own those. There's no shame in saying, well, do you know what? I tried this, had no clue what to do. It's unprecedented times, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. I made a call. I don't know if it was the right one. So I think those are kind of the way I would put it, that it's worth having a look and thinking through. So the way we would fix the issue, you know, if we need to get another year-on-year comparison so we can bring it in, what do you think that would be? I think, you know, what we should be doing is looking through and seeing how can I bring in the 2018 data, okay? So that's part of the mission, I think. It's going to be bringing in the 2018 data, expanding all this so that we can look at 2018 and see. 2018 will give us 2 data points. Do we need to bring in the third of 2016? But anyway, we're going to get 300 million rows of data here. I'll do it while we're offline because I'm really intrigued as to whether the dip here is normal. Because again, July, again, there was weird things. You know, I think if I was an American, I'm sure there'd be things going, well, of course, man. Yeah, 4th of July, no one gets a taxi then, man. Give your head a shake. Why would I get a taxi on the 4th of July, man? But if we look into July, you can see again, brilliant being able to do this, you know, we can actually see at that level of detail, really interact into it. And so we can actually go 4th of July, see where the taxis were from and to, you know, so picking up, you know, people wanting to get into town, weren't they? Heading into Manhattan or to the airport. Seems to be what was going on, you know, from the drop-offs that they were having, you know. But then you've got most of the pickups that are coming from the airport as well, so people are flying in. So it's interesting stuff, definitely. Some really key piece of information in here. And one of the things as well, I think it's probably, given that the airport seems so important, is to build an airport page. So I'm going to have a go at doing an airport page, and then I'll build one, and then we'll show you how we can clone those and set those up for the next one. And then of course what we'll also be looking at seeing is just what happens when we bring in the 2017 and 2016 data. Well, sorry, 2017 and 2018 data. So we've got 3 good years of data, as it were, and then we can look at them together with our bad, abnormal year of 2020 and actually really get to the grips, get to the bottom of what is going on with data. So what do you reckon? How do you think it is? You know, do you think, is it that New York taxi drivers are really decent human beings who turn around and said, do you know, look, honestly, I've lost 90% of my income. You guys who are still traveling in, you're amazing. Just don't tip us. You know, or is it that it's commuters who, you know, I've got to do the same taxi journey every day to work because public transport's awful for whatever reason, I'm not going to tip you. I don't know. I don't know. The nice part of me or the part of me that hopes people are decent people, I know which side I hope it is. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. The nice thing with all this is we've got a nice interactive report and we can see what is happening at any given time around New York with the taxi services. It's going to teach us as well that we need to learn how the data is built. So one of the areas I'm looking at, for example, is like distance travel. Right, distance is really weird. So as with any of these data sources that you get, right, these big public data sources, right, especially something at this level, right, and you'll see it in the oracles, in the SAPs as well. When you're looking at transaction level data, right, you get some real anomalies that creep in there. So I was looking at distance because I want to think, well, you know, distance. I want to do some with distance. I really want to do some of the distance measures in here. And the trip distance, I was like going, well, minus 3,700. Just, it doesn't feel right. So it's not right there. There is something in there that's not right. So I need to kind of figure out what normal is for them. And say when we had a look at the averages, it was like the 300s, wasn't it? have a look here. Don't forget, just remember, by the way, behind the scenes, 100 million rows of data running on my computer that I'm also doing this whole recording on and all this stuff, yeah? So it's pretty good. It's not a case of Power BI going, oh, I just can't cope. So if we look at the average distance, it's 12. You're not going to believe that. Is that kilometers? Maybe it is. Maybe it is, right? So the average distance seems to have gone up. Well, not well for May, it went up. Yeah, April is higher. The rest is about normal. So maybe it is a case that people are having to take longer distance taxi journeys, and then because they're longer distance, these are all the areas that you can start to get into. So it could be but what we want to be able to figure out is, how can I tell what of my data is good, and how can I tell what of my data is bad? And then the question becomes, what do I do about my data that is bad? And that's a particularly difficult question if you've got something like an ERP system data set, where, for whatever reason, we can't delete the rows out of the ERP system. So we just kind of have to use what we get. And that is a reality of doing this job. So one of the things we have to do is figure out what's bad. And then if it's bad, we can start to say, well, we're going to exclude these. We're just going to exclude it. It shouldn't be used, or do we use a known maximum? So, for example, because that might be the way to do it, that we use like an average journey between distance. If there was a distance calculation table we could build, we could use an average distance. So we would know that, say, LaGuardia to JFK is blah, and every journey going from zone to that zone gets that blah distance. It might be the way we have to go. It would depend on the scale of the issue. I think looking at it, there's around 30,000 rows, which, when you look at it, it's not even 1%, yeah? It's like, 0.3%. So it's not like, oh, no, that was really, really bad. That's 0.03%. It's yeah, kind of like, I think no matter what you're doing, every margin of error is going to go, yeah, do you know what, we can live with that. But is that enough to then say we've excluded them from the calculation? I don't know. I mean, I've had a look, saying it's minuses. Does this mean something? Is it something going on? I suspect it's just a fault or a bug or a broken trip computer. Okay, I don't know. It would be something though that this is where what Power BI has done is it's served up that we need to do some more work. We need to do some legwork, understand a little bit more about a particular area. It's good that we can see that there is a change in terms of the average distance. That means something. So we've got average tips is down, or the tip percentage is down. So if we bring tip percentage in there, tip percentage is down, distance is up. So it does, that correlates with, well, I'm having to spend more money, I have less. Which, and obviously I'm struggling with the pandemic myself, natural. But it's interesting to be able to understand that. When we bring in the other years of data as well, to get this way beyond 100 million rows of data, right, I'd be really keen as well to find out, is this a norm that it drops off between July, August and September? And it might well be, that people feel, it's nice, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to walk through Manhattan, because there seems to be a lot of the pickup is from Manhattan. Okay, so I'm adding a slicer. So I've added a slicer for here, so we can have a look. We can see, well, Manhattan, what does that do? So picking up from Manhattan, you can see the drop-off points. There's a lot of drop-off points in Manhattan. You can see that's definitely where the dip is. What about if we looked at, say, the Bronx? Or sorry, Brooklyn? There is a dip. There's changes. Do you know, I love it. This is one of the things I love. The more we look, the more questions come out as well, and that's really powerful because it makes you learn what's actually happening. So if you're following along with this, going, I hope you're something like, oh, you should be. if you're anything like me, you will be, which, because I get the point going, well, hang on, what does this mean? Staten Island, if we look at Staten Island, what's happening there? So you hear actually big uptick, Staten Island, early morning. So clearly something is happening. Is that, as I say, is this the case that we've managed to find what's happening? That people are not willing to take the subway, for example, and they take, especially if it's a long distance, they're going to take a taxi, and then because they have to spend more on their journey, they're not able to tip. It, we're starting to get into these ideas here of what actually could be going on. So let's keep going with this, right? I hope you're starting to see it's far be it. It's not a failure of you. It's not a failure of me. I'm not going to tell you what I failed. Actually, I would. I'm quite happy to say I failed. You've seen it last week. It's a case of saying that the data leads you to ask the next question. Yeah. Now there is a term for that. It's an emergent behaviour in terms of it's not one we could have mathematically modelled would happen. So I would never be able to say, oh, I'm going to look at this for 5 tips about, so I'm going to look at why tips about. I have to do all the steps to get to there to go, oh, tips about. Why is tips about? Look into that. Is it from here? Is it people travelling long distance to Manhattan, for example? Is that what's causing the problem? And that's where it starts to become a change in behaviour. That's where you start to do more with your data and you start to become more data aware. And because you're more data aware and your business becomes more data aware, you will naturally start to lead a data revolution. Sounds scary. A data revolution! A data revolution isn't something to be scared of. It's something to embrace. It will really change the way your business works when you start to look at the data and say, what's this showing me? And then from there, how can we understand our business more to make what we do better? Yeah? So I hope you'll come back next week, look and see what a 300 million row data set looks like. And then, of course, we can all go through, look at the proper trending with a 3-year trend of that, see how the calculation groups cope with ours. No doubt add to the calculation group because they're really bad. We're also going to do, in the next one, so the last piece we're going to do is split it. Okay, so we have report, data model, and 2 Power BI files, which is just the last piece of the puzzle to do, really. So hopefully you feel suitably enthused and wanting to find out what's going on in New York. Don't know where Snake Plissken is, but did he escape? Oh, right. Have a great weekend. Take care. Ta-da.